Hello and welcome to this lecture where we're going to be creating a times table app. So the idea is you have a child or you yourself, you're trying to learn the times tables. You can have this awesome app where you say, I want to know the times table for 5, and it lists out all the timetables. You move down to 2, for example, and it's showing 2, 4, 6, 8. And if you're not familiar with times tables, it's, what is 2 times 1, 2 times 2, 2 times 3, 2 times 4. And if you're doing the times table for 5, it's what's 5 times 1, 5 times 2, 5 times 3, 5 times 4, 5 times 5. And so we use this seek bar slider and we can kind of, move around, and whatever number it is, I think we should have a minimum of 1 and go up to a max of 20. You can decide what your parameters are going to be. But if you think about it, you know everything that you need in order to make this app. You know about seek bars, you know about list views, you can put this all together. So your challenge is for this lecture to go and make this app on your own. So I'm going to ask you to pause in a second here and go ahead and do this. And please give this a real effort. I know it's very tempting to just go ahead and hit play. I'll just walk through this with how Nick does it. But no, you know how to do both these things. I want you to give this a real try because, as I've said before, this is where the real learning takes place. So go ahead, hit pause, make this app, and then come back. I'll show you how I did it. Maybe you'll find some differences between the way that we did things, or maybe you'll just get absolutely lost, and after you spend a good chunk of time trying to figure it out, you can say, okay, I'm just going to go ahead and watch how Nick did it. But please give this the old college try, and go ahead, hit pause now. All right, so let's go ahead and get started here by creating a new project, and I'm going to go ahead and call mine times tables. I think that adequately describes what it is we're trying to create here. Let's go ahead and do that classic empty activity, and we'll hit finish. Android Studio's off to do all its magic, creating this new project for us. So really what we're doing here is we're combining the stuff that we learned with the seek bar and the recent stuff with the list view. We're bringing it all together for this nice mishmash. So I hope you enjoyed the challenge here, and of course want to walk you through how I did it, maybe see any differences you saw between the two of us, or in case you just really got stuck on something. But with that, let's go ahead and dive into this. So the first thing that we got to work on is the visual side of things, right? We want to get our seek bar up top, and then we also want to have a list view below that. So let's go ahead and get rid of that text view that we always get by default, and we are going to bring down a seek bar, and luckily it's just nice here up at the top for us. So I'm just going to click drag this out, and we've got to work on our constraints here. So we're going to go ahead and up to the top and say, hey, maybe you should be, I don't know, 5 from the top. That might be a good number, just sort of all around. Guess I got to hit enter on there. There we go. So maybe 5 from the top, 5 from the left. This is all looking good. Okay. So we've got that information. Now it doesn't by default stretch all the way to the sides. Let me go ahead and give us some space here so this will zoom in a little bit more. So we can go ahead and change these options, and this is what we want so that we can get it to go all the way to the edges, right? So we can see that. And so the seeker looks pretty good. The next thing that we want to work now is the table. So we're going to go to our containers. There's our list view. We'll just go ahead and drag that out. And for this one, almost by default, you can just always hit those plus buttons. So right now it's got about an 8 border on all of it. If you want to change that, you totally can, but that's up to you. So with that, let's go ahead with this seek bar and give it an ID. So rather than just seek bar, I'm going to call it times tables capital seek bar. There we go. It's usually good with IDs to have this camel case style of typing, right? Where each time we have a new word, we capitalize the first letter of that. Just want to make sure you're aware of what we're doing when I do that. So let's go ahead and update that. Okay. On this list view, we want to call this our times tables list view. Excellent. Okay. So we got IDs for both of these. Now we can move back to our code here and actually start working on everything. So first, let's get access to that seek bar. So we're going to say seek bar space, and let's go ahead and give this a name. I think we should just stick with what we have, the times tables seek bar. Excellent. So we're going to say this thing should be equal to, and we'll use our classic find view by ID, capital R dot ID dot times table, and look at that, times tables seek bar. All right. So now that we've got the seek bar, oh, and we've got to make sure that this is properly imported. Come on, I need you to give me the little pop-up so I can auto-import you. Well, we'll see as we keep going if this gets, oh, look at that, Command Enter should get rid of that. Or it's saying should, oh, no. There we go, there's our little light bulb. Okay, so, well, I'm not sure. Let's try this one more time. Capital seek bar. We want the one here from Android.widget. We hit enter. Okay. I guess maybe I just had typed out seek bar without hitting enter. It's when you do that autocomplete and you see that, Android Studio will automatically import the stuff that you need up top there. So sometimes it can be a little bit tricky, but you got to make sure you get that. Next, we're going to go on to the list view. And I'm going to go ahead and just call this, you guessed it, times tables list view. And again, we'll use our find view by ID, capital R.ID, times table list view. All right, now we have access to both the things from our XML here in our Java code. That's great. So the next step for us is we just want to start setting up the seek bar, right? There's a few different options that we want to have with this seek bar. So first we have to give the seek bar a max. So first I'm going to type out the times table seek bar, and I'm going to say, you know what, I want to set the max that this thing could possibly be, and I want that to be 20. Okay. Other thing that we should probably set here is a starting point. So we're going to take our seek bar and we're going to say set progress. Progress is sort of where this seek bar currently is. So I say let's just go ahead and start this thing out at 10. That kind of seems like a reasonable position to be in. Okay. So once we have that in place, we need to write some code so that whenever the user is changing that seek bar, right, moving things left to right, that we can, say, oh, okay, now the times table is going to be for the 1s, the 2s, the 3s, the 4s, whatever it is. So we need some listeners here. So we're going to take our times table seek bar, and then we're going to do a set on seek bar change listener. Okay. So check this out. When we say new and we want a new capital seek bar dot on seek bar change listener, this is going to be awesome when we hit enter here. Boom, we get all this crazy information. So the on progress change, this is whenever the user changes to a new location. It's going to tell us what position it's currently at. And then also you can get information about when it's starting, when it's stopping. We're not going to use these two. We really only care about when it's actually changed. But nice to know that those two options are there for us. Okay. So the first thing that we want to do is set some sort of minimum like this, because we don't want to have a times table for 0, right? 0 times 1 times 2 times 3, whatever it is going to be 0. So we kind of want 1 to be our minimum. So what we're going to do is we're going to create an int that we're going to call min, and we're going to set it to what our minimum should be. In this case, 1. Now, the reason we've created a variable here called min rather than just, saying, hey, if it's less than 1 is I want the option to be able to change what the minimum is. Maybe at some point in the future we want the minimum to be 5, 10, 2, whatever it is. It's just always good in code to give names to variables. I've heard it referred to as magic numbers. You shouldn't have any magic numbers in your code where you're, doing computations and, you just say, oh, okay, as long as this thing is less than 1. It's saying, well, why is it less than 1? It's better to say, is this thing less than the minimum? And then you can update the minimum. So anyway, small little tip there. So the thing that we want to do is we want to do a little if statement with this minimum and say, okay, we want to check and see if what the progress is, this little int that they pass over here, if this thing, which is called I, is less than the minimum that we have set up. Okay, so we'll go ahead and do our curly brackets here. So if it's less than the minimum, what we want to do is we want to update and say, okay, the times table position that we're going to be working with is going to be equal to whatever the minimum is. So this is, for example, if they have scrolled down to 0, then we want to say, okay, and I guess before this, we need to make a new int called times table number. Okay. What we're not going to set this equal to anything for right now. We'll just have it set up. But what we're going to do here is we're going to say our times table number is going to be equal to minimum. So this basically saves us from, okay, if they have slide the slider all the way down to 0, or if we update this minimum to be higher, if it's below the minimum, we want it to at least be the minimum. Then we're going to put an else statement on here, say, okay, well, as long as it's not lower than the minimum, it's very simple. We just want the times table number to be equal to whatever I is equal to, because I is wherever that seek bar currently is. Maybe it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way up to our max, which in this case is 20. Okay, so now that you've got that in place, the next thing that we want to do here is just see if this is even working. And so we're going to log out some information to see if we can get this to work. So we're going to say log.i, and we'll go ahead, print out a few things. So we're going to first say this is where the seek bar value is at, and then we are going to go ahead and get whatever this times table number is and print that out. So we're going to say integer, there we go, dot toString, because we want to convert this puppy, and then we're going to pass in the times table number. So this way we can take whatever inside of our times table number, print that out, and let's go ahead and run this on our emulator. Okay, so go ahead and run that. Wait for this guy to pop up. It's always good to have the emulator sort of up and running in the background. I feel a little bit foolish now because I was going to say it loads so quickly when you have the emulator up and running already, but here we are waiting for this. It looks like maybe it's doing a Gradle build that's taking a little bit of time. I guess as we're waiting for this, something that I would want to point out, and just as I'm about to move into something, it starts rolling up. Okay, so here we go. Let's get logcat up so that we can see if our log shows. So let's get our emulator here, and I'm going to move the seek bar, and look at that. Down at the bottom, it's showing 9, 8, 7, all that good stuff. This is good. And let's go ahead and try, bring this thing down to 0, and look at that. It never displays 0. Now, something that we do have an issue with is that if we go all the way to the left, it's actually at the 0 position, but it's still, the times table number is still equal to 1, but we don't really want that there. So something that we can do is here in this if statement, if we found that they've gone past the minimum, we can go ahead and say, all right, you know what? We want to update the seek bar to, move the bar to the actual minimum. And we can do that by simply typing out times table seek bar dot, and what we're going to do is set progress, just like we did up here where we set the progress to 10 initially. In this case, we're going to set it to the minimum to say, hey, if someone's moving this thing along, past there, we want to make sure it gets back to the 1 position. So let's go ahead and see what this looks like on the actual device. And now if we go ahead and move that all the way, look at that, it won't even let us get down to that position. So this is exactly what we're looking for, and we can check logcat. Look at that, we're getting all the right values to show up there. Okay, so that's looking really good. We can move the seek bar, we get the information that we need. The next thing that we need to do is we need to be able to now move forward and write some code whenever somebody is going to, we need to actually fill out that list view, right? That's sort of our next step on things. So what we're going to do is after we've done this, we need to go ahead and type out here. We need to make our array list first. So we're going to say array list. There we go. And we want this to be an array list of strings. That makes it really easy to work with the list view. And we're going to call this times table content. Excellent. And we're going to go ahead and say that this is equal to a new array list of type string. Okay, so we've got that in place. This is what we want to create, is an array list of strings that hold the proper times table. And then we need to fill that out with information. It's a little bit tough here because you know, we want to, it's always going to be different. If it's the times tables are 1, it's just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, you know, up to, I don't know, we can choose how far it is that we want to go, but the next time it's going to be 2, 4, 6, 8, and then 3, 9, or 3, 6, 9, 12. Yeah, I should stop trying to do this and let the computer do the math for me. But the best way to handle this is a for loop. So a for loop can just automatically go through and check and say, okay, well, if, you know, the times table number is this, then we're going to go ahead and do this type of thing. So what we're going to do is we're going to say for, and let's set up our for loop here. So the first thing is we're going to make a little int I. Now, it's a little bit tough here because we're already using the int I here. So let's go ahead and use a different variable. I'm going to call it int j. So we're going to let int j be equal to 1. All right. Then we're going to go ahead and say if j is less than or equal to, and this is, we can decide how big we want our times table to go. Maybe let's just say 10 for now. And then we're going to say, you know, each time we go through this, we want to increase j by 1. Let's do our curly bracket with that for loop. And then what we're going to do is we want to add now to this times table content array. So let's go ahead and get that times table content. And once we have that there, we're going to say dot add on this. So we have to add a string here. So really what we want to add in the end, we're hoping to take whatever the current number is here. So we're going to take j, and we want to multiply j times whatever the times table number is. So let's just go ahead and type that out. So for example, if j is 1 and they want to know the times table for 5, so j is equal to 1, 1 times 5 is 5. The next time this for loop goes through, j will be equal to 2, so 2 times 5 is 10. Do you kind of see how that loops through? But we have a problem here because this is not a string. This is an integer. So again, we need to do that cool little conversion step where we say, all right, we're going to take integer.toString, and let's go ahead and put this inside of the parentheses, just like that, and we'll put our cool little semicolon, and now this for loop will go ahead and add the proper times tables there. So, I mean, we're getting to the home stretch here. We have the array list, we have the for loop that fills it up. The next thing that we need to do is make our array adapter. So let's go ahead, we're going to make an array adapter. We want this to be of type string. Okay, and I'm just going to call this classic old array adapter. This will be equal to a new array adapter, and this is where we're going to start filling out all these parameters. So we want this for the context, and then we're going to pass lowercase android dot capital R dot layout dot simple list item 1, and then we want to pass in our array. So we're going to go ahead and pass in times table content, and we'll do our semicolon. Okay, so now that we have the array adapter in place, we are going to take our times table list view and say, all right, we are going to set your adapter, and let's pass in our array adapter that we just created. Okay. We have written a lot of code. We should probably test and make sure this thing works. It's one of my big tips for programming. Never go too long without actually updating your code and making sure that everything's working here. And oh, we are having a bit of an issue here. Let's see what it is not happy about. So android.r.layout, anonymous. All right, let me go ahead and pause and see what it's not so happy about. So I found out what the issue was, and it's that when we refer to this, I forgot that this is going to be referring to this seek bar because we're currently in this, change listener inside of there. So this is referring to the seek bar when we actually wanted to refer to our activity here. So I think the proper way to fix this, and we're going to have to do this anyways because, we need to, well, I was going to show you how, when we first run the app and whenever we change the seeker, we want this code to run. And so it's a good idea to put this code inside of its own function. So what we're going to do is up here at the top, we're going to go ahead and create our very own function. So we're going to say public void, or method. You could also refer to it as a method. I kind of go back and forth on that. because I know technically it's a method, but for me it's kind of like, well, you know, anytime you're in activity, it just sort of feels like you're making your own function. But anyways, that's beyond the point of what we're trying to do here. So we're going to do generate times table, and there we're going to pass in an int. The int that we're going to pass in is this times table number. So we'll go ahead and put that there. And let's now do our curly brackets. So with these curly brackets, this is where we want to then go grab all of this awesome code. We're going to cut this, and then we'll go ahead and paste this right inside. Excellent. Okay, so now that we've got this information inside of here, we need to be able to call this generate times table. So we're going to go ahead and move this down, and I'm seeing a lot of red here. I'm going to go ahead and hit run because I'm assuming something's wrong. Maybe Android Studio is just prematurely freaking out. Yeah, it's not liking how I handled this. Oh, and that's because I tried to put this function inside of the onCreate method. Okay, we're getting all sorts of doing sorts of dumb stuff here. Okay, so we need to put it up at the top here. There we go. That's looking a lot better. All right, so now that we have that, again, we need to call this generate times table. So I'm going to move down to where we had this before, and we're going to call generate times table, and we're going to pass in the times table number. That looks good. But you notice we're getting an issue here, and that's because, you know, we're trying to refer to this times table list view, which is created here inside of the onCreate method. So that's not what we're looking for. So what we need to do here is we're actually going to create this list view. Let's go ahead and cut this. We want this to be a property of the class, so we'll just go ahead and put that there. And then instead, we're going to take the name of this, go ahead and copy that and paste it in. There we go. And then that should handle our issues there. So let's go ahead and now run this, that we got everything sort of in place there. So again, when we move the seek bar, we should see that it updates the list view with the proper information. This is kind of moment of truth here. We've done a lot of work to get up to this moment. So you'll notice there's nothing, and that's an issue. I'm going to talk about that in a second, but let's go ahead and move this, and look at that. As soon as we move this thing, we can go all the way up to 20, showing the times tables for 20. We can go all the way down to 1. Oh, this is beautiful. So we've got the core functionality showing up here. Again, I think the biggest thing is just when we open the app for the first time, we don't have anything showing up, and it's a very simple fix that you know, we just go ahead and we call this generate times table function on our onCreate for the very first time. So we're just going to go ahead and call generate times table. Now it's very tempting here to just go ahead and pass in the number 10. And this would probably be fine, but remember my whole lecture about magic numbers, I think we can kind of clean up what we have here. In fact, with the max here, that'd probably be a good place to change this as well. So I'm going to create an int here called max that I'm going to set equal to 20, and I'm going to update this with max. And I'm also going to create another int that I'm just going to call starting position. Okay, and we're going to set this thing equal to 10. And the reason I'm doing this is because you see where we repeated 10 2 times? If we now use starting position instead of just 10 arbitrarily, I can say, you know what? I want starting position to be 1. Oh, now I want it to be 5. Maybe I want it to be 13. Whatever it is, it just makes it that much easier for your code. So this is, I want to be consistent with my advice that I'm giving you. But let's go ahead and see now if when the app runs for the very first time, if it's displaying the times table for the 10 position. And here comes the app. Look at that. It's showing the 10s. Beautiful, beautiful stuff. Now, just for fun, because I think this is so cool that we can make this happen so quickly, I want to do the times tables out to 100 just to see what that would look like. So I'm going to go ahead and put that there. Let's see what this looks like on the emulator. I mean, because this is what's cool about programming, right? This for loop, all we had to do is change one number, and all of a sudden the loop's going 100 times instead of 10. So, you know, we go to some position here. Look Look at that. I can see 7 all the way out to 700. I mean, it's just really amazing how this all works. So anyways, I hope you enjoyed creating this. We kind of brought together some ideas, and that's what we're hoping to do in this course, right? You learn about the seek bar, you learn about list views. How can I then put those things together to make something awesome, right? We want to take all these pieces that we're learning and build them together, so in the end, you are just an awesome baller app developer. Okay, so we still got plenty more to learn, so let's go ahead and keep moving forward.